Okay, hello again. So as I ended that stream, I got a couple of texts from people saying that they could hear me. So I'm just going to assume that there's something wrong with my software and it's not giving me indications of live viewers. So that's okay. I was just mainly concerned with the, getting recorded. Yeah, I know there is no visual. I think it's probably my really, really crappy phone. As long as the audio's on there, that's really what I'm concerned about. Because this is going to be a recording of my book, section 2 of the book. I did want to put this out as a video so that I could include the diagrams that are included in the book. But unfortunately, with my computer down and with my internet down, the only thing I can do is live stream with audio. So hopefully that's sufficient, and there's not too many diagrams that are going to be necessary to get points across. And I suppose I can try to describe the diagrams and whatnot. Before I get started, just want to remind everyone that this channel is viewer supported. So if you'd like to help me continue doing videos, you can support the channel direct to PayPal, to www.paypal.me/TheMorgile, or you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month at www.patreon.com/TheMorgile. And if you want to send me a text, the number's 864-315-7892. And the reason it's probably better to text is because if I don't recognize a telephone number, then I usually won't answer it. It's typically telemarketers. Oh, and please don't call while I'm streaming, because I think the last stream I did, that messed me up. I really, really have a bad phone. It's like the worst smartphone you can get. It's like a prepaid phone. So yeah, it's not all that, to put it mildly. Right. So I guess I'll just before I get started, mention again the reason that I'm not doing this more professionally is because my internet's down, and I tried to install a Wi-Fi card into my PC, and I may have fried my motherboard. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to get that computer back, or I'll have to wait till I can get another one. But just, say a little prayer for me, because I'm sort of dead in the water right now, but at least I've got my phone, knock on wood. Right. So I'm just picking up right where we left off. This is, again, section 2 of the book, The Morgile's Guide to Flat Earth. And this section is still actually part of the first chapter, but the section is called, Where is the Curvature? So moving along to a bit less complex topics for a bit. What could be more simple than basic elementary geometry? We all know what a sphere is. Since we were all very young, globes have been a staple ingredient to the mindless indoctrination that is the federally mandated curriculum from K to 12. We're led to believe from as early in life as possible that we all live stuck to the side of an enormous rotating sphere, held fast to the sides of the centrifuge Earth by the elusive, mysterious theory of gravity. Now, we'll get into gravity later on. However, gravity itself is one of the other fundamental phantoms of theory which will be falsified within this work. Staying on topic with the idea of a ball, and without getting into the physics just yet, consider the simplest and most common of all shapes, the sphere. Indeed, the world is professed to be a sphere so large, nobody is capable of seeing the entire thing at once, not half of it really, sans the legendary and completely incredible Apollo astronauts. Now, by incredible, I mean not credible, as in not to be trusted. If you check many reputable online resources to determine the expected vertical descent due to, quote, Earth curvature, which is necessary to result in an overall sphere, you will often find the top result answer as 8 inches per mile, complete with long and complex mathematical explanations as to how the mathematician arrived at that conclusion. Now, while this may be semi-accurate, it is of course incorrect and indeed utterly ridiculous, as the expression describes a mere slant or a slope, as opposed to an inverse square curve, which a spherical object would necessarily exhibit. Now, the correct and conservative expression would instead be 8 inches per mile squared. Therefore, it would be an exponential vertical descent, which would necessarily occur proportionally with the distance, according to an observer on the hypothetically spherical Earth. Now, such inverse square vertical descent due to curvature would be most apparent over flat areas of the Earth, or more adequately expressed over long stretches of standing water, as water will always find its own level and should be considered as the true level, whether the Earth beneath the surface is concave or convex or irregular in any sense. The water above will always be a true level. Now, be the Earth a sphere, then the true level of water would be a perfect curve, vertically declining at an exponential rate from any given starting point. Be it a plane, then the water would indeed be perfectly level if uninterrupted. Relatively dramatic vertical descent would occur over comparatively short distances. Now, for example, over a distance of 50 miles, the ground beneath your feet should be about a third mile higher than the ground 50 miles away. The problem is, people all over the world are documenting and sharing credible photographs of videos of cityscapes exceeding 50 miles in distance, where the buildings are visible nearly from top to bottom over 50 miles. Now, the bottoms of these buildings are, of course, not visible from such a great distance due to the invisible angles created by objects so distant and near the ground, essentially boiling down to the laws of perspectives and the limits of vision concerning the human eye, as well as refraction, which plays a huge role in obscuring the bottoms of those distant buildings. Now, this topic will be covered in greater detail at a later point in this book. For now, suffice to say, the laws of perspective are dictated by the shape and nature of our eye and the lens of our eye, and our height above sea level dictates the distance to our apparent ground horizon. On a clear day, a 6-foot tall person will see the horizon at a distance of about 3 to a little more than 3 miles. Anything near the ground beyond that point becomes invisible due to the angular size appearing too small for our eyes to render or differentiate between the horizon itself, as well as the physical barrier of the horizon itself becoming more and more significant as an object gains distance beyond the horizon. And of course, we must also include refraction into this equation. Now, at a distance of 50 miles, even the tallest skyscraper in Chicago should be obscured by the horizon line, assuming a spherical Earth. Only the portions of buildings taller than about 1,600 feet should be visible from 50 miles away, yet we can clearly see about 90% of such buildings, none of which even come close to such a staggering height as 1,600 plus feet, which would be necessary to view that portion over the horizon were the Earth a sphere. Now, for example, in the picture taken by Joshua Nowicki from Grandmere State Park, facing towards the Chicago skyline across Lake Michigan, indeed, water is an excellent indicator of levelness, spherical Earth or otherwise, as everyone knows that a viscous liquid will always find its place of rest to fit its container, naturally filling the lowest point of said container first, and naturally self-leveling, regardless of the contents or the shape of the container. Humoring the principle of a spherical gravitic Earth, large stretches of water should display near perfect curvature as, quote, gravity is supposedly tugging everything towards the center of the ball Earth to result in a nearly perfect sphere mainly comprised of water. Now, this quote-unquote fact dictates that a large stretch of water would be, quote, level to the extent that it is a near perfect curve. Of course, nowhere in reality can standing water be shown to naturally curve over great arcs or around all sides of a ball, although the whimsical theory of gravity allows for this hypothetically, or at least for the time being. Now, I put a map, a Google Earth screenshot of the distance between Grand Mere State Park and Chicago. Now, it's about 65 miles across the body of water to Chicago, yet when the sun is at your back during the morning twilight, the entirety of the Chicago skyline is clearly visible across about 60 miles of standing water comprising Lake Michigan. Now, subtracting a conservative 5 miles from the overall distance to account for the observer's height above the water level, the base of the Chicago skyline should indeed be about 2,400 feet below the water level of Grand Mere State Park. And you get that answer by multiplying 60 times 60 times 0.666666. And the picture, which you can find online, is the Chicago skyline from Grand Mere State Park, taken by Joshua Nowicki. The picture is authentic and has in no way been doctored, and it was made sort of famous by a weatherman saying that it was a mirage that we were seeing. Indeed, such photos have been reproduced by independent researchers the world over. However, this instance is about as good as they get. This image of the Chicago skyline from over 60 miles away across Lake Michigan from Grand Mere State Park is absolute proof that the necessary curvature to result in an overall spherical Earth simply does not exist. Staggeringly, the tallest building in the Chicago is the Willis Tower, being about 1,450 feet tall. And the Willis Tower is the tall building towards the left or towards the south of the skyline in that image. And again, I apologize, I can't share that image with you right now, but I'm sure if you're listening to me now, you are online, so you can look that up, the image. The Willis Tower is the tall building towards the left or the south of the skyline in that image. Now, according to the necessary geological curvature of a spherical Earth, the very top of the Willis Tower should be covered by the horizon, with nearly 1,000 feet of horizon above the top of to spare from this distance. Again, the base of Chicago should be about 2,400 feet lower than the observer here, owing to the distance of 60 miles of expected curved water. Now, since the top of Willis Tower is about 1,700 feet, then the horizon should still be 700 foot higher than the very tip top of Willis Tower from a distance of about 60 miles. Nowhere in reality can you find evidence for Earth curvature. Unlike the ancient philosophers who built our postmodern belief system thousands of years ago, we have modern technologies which allow us to conclusively prove facts without having to guess, argue, or theorize. Just a few examples of technologies and knowledge afforded to us which the ancients and even relatively recent scientists weren't privy to would be piloted flight, high-altitude weather balloons with digital recording capabilities, understanding of electromagnetism, instant communications, high-precision